Welcome back to the Writer's Workshop, where we give you the tools to unleash your creativity and flourish. I am author Lady V.
And I'm Alice Brown.
And today we are going over getting so fixated on your writing that you never actually publish it. This is a pitfall that a lot of newbie writers fall into.
Yes.
And even a few seasoned authors, especially if they're trying to switch a genre,
yes.
Or if they come across something that is still in their genre but completely opposite from the style of writing that they have written.
An example of that is if you're used to writing in first person and all of a sudden decide to switch to third person. That is a complete different style of writing and can throw even a seasoned writer into a tizzy.
Yes. So let's get started.
So surprisingly, over the years that we've done shows, we've had a decent amount of people come up to us and say, well, I've been writing for X number of years, and I've heard anything from 3 to 4 up to 10 and plus, but I've never published. And I had a really hard time wrapping my head around that at the beginning. I'm like, why? What could possibly be stopping you from hitting that publish button? And so I really had to start digging into this situation.
And it can be a multitude of different things, which we will cover.
Yes, it can.
I know, for instance, there's a author on YouTube, and I'm going to go ahead and call her an author because she is in the process of trying to get her book published. But she has been writing her first book in the series for over 10 years. She has gone through over 10 revisions of this book, and she just now has felt comfortable enough to try and submit it for publication.
I'm going to let everybody in on a little secret here. Once you publish that first book, if you continue down the writing career, if you continue publishing and continue writing, I promise you, in 10 or 15 years from now, you're going to look back to the first book you wrote and go, oh God, I can't believe I published that crap. Oh God, this is so awful. Because we all learn and develop our skill as we progress.
Art always is evolving. It doesn't matter what classification of art it is. I've known numerous artists who are singers or physical artists, painters, and they think that when they put their first one out there, their first painting, their first song, it is just a masterpiece. 10, 20 years later, they're looking at it going, oh my God, I published that crap? What the ever-loving hell was I thinking?
I did that myself. Vampires Among Us was originally written a good 15 years ago. It has since gone through multiple revisions because I have gone back as the story progressed in my head, and I've come across mistakes and loopholes and holes in the story that I needed to go in and plug, and I have done that. Some authors choose not to do this, and that is perfectly fine. A lot of your seasoned authors, and I believe Brandon Sanders once said this, not to try to publish your very first work ever. If you want to self-publish it, that's fine. But
do not submit it to an agent or a publishing house.
Because no matter how good you think it is, I promise you, as you continue writing and developing your skill, you're going to get better and better and better at it.
And I will link the video. It's a short in the description of this video to that one of him talking. It's actually during one of his lectures, and he's mostly saying in that is not only will you get better, but also with writing just one book, even if you have revised it 10 times, you have not written enough at that point in time to understand your own style. And it is very important before you go and sign a contract with an agent or a publishing house that you know your style of writing. That way you don't get signed and they're like, okay, well, you're handing me a science fiction book, now I want you to go write a children's novel. And you're just like, I don't know the first thing about writing a children's book. I don't even like kids. That could be what your personality is. Or, you wrote a horror book and now it wants you to write a rom-com. Say what? I once met an indie author at a book con, and she said to me that she had the aspiration to write one book in every subgenre of romance.
I remember that.
If you take the time to look up the actual category and umbrella, and I call it an umbrella of romance, your romance is at the top of that umbrella, and then all the little wires that come down from that umbrella are your subgenres. There are numerous. The amount of books that she would have to write in every subgenre of romance would be astronomical. Congratulations to her on feeling confident enough and being diverse enough to do that. I, however, am not. And that is just the personal writer that I am. I could not sit here and write fantasy romance or romantasy, which is what I'm passionate about, or paranormal, which I am also passionate about, but also do a rom-com of just humans. I'm sorry, that's a little boring. I am a human. I don't want to be a human.
Well, or historical romance.
Historical romance is another one.
That's one that I will not touch, because the amount of research that has to be done to make sure that your facts that you put in there are correct.
Your facts, your language and lingo that it was spoken back then is crucial. The author who did 50 Shades of Grey, something James, I know she ended up, after 50 Shades of Grey, she wrote another book that was part of the whole BDSM, like 50 Shades of Grey, but it was in historical time, and the amount of feedback that she got, not good feedback at that, was horrendous, because she was using modern day reference in a culture that was not even developed then.
Yep.
Good girl.
In talking with the people at shows, wondering when they're supposed to publish. And one of these days I'm going to look somebody in the eye and go, June 14th, 2028, just to blow their mind. Because I always, when they go, well, when do I know when to publish? And I'm like, do you expect me to give you a date? I can't do that. But it has, in talking with these people, brought to light that they are fixated on getting their book perfect. And I get that. That is very important. It is very important for grammatical errors, for fact check, and all like that. I truly get that. However, I think there can come a time when you go overboard, when you just become scared that your work is not good enough.
I can say, as a perfectionist, I have run into that stumbling block a couple times. Not necessarily with my writing, but with my art. I tend to be, we're always our worst critics, and we tend to get so stuck in our minds by comparing ourselves to other people. What you don't realize is the people that you value, that you idolize, being a writer, an artist, a singer, they've had years to get to where they are right now, where you're idolizing them. They didn't start off this way. I recently read an article on an author who was having a meltdown at an event because they had written a book and they could not handle the success that they were getting. And everybody thought that that success was a first time published. It was her 20th book. Her 20th book. We're in a society where we want instant gratifications. We've come to expect that with social media, unfortunately. We've been conditioned for it. But instant gratification and instant success don't often come. And most of the time when you think you see something that is instant gratification or instant success, most of the time it is not. Go do some back searching. That is not their first time publishing. That's not their first time opening a business. That's not their first song. It is not the first one that usually takes off. And even if it is, that's not what you want, because most of the time, if you do have one book pop off, your first book pop off, you're not going to have that happen with your second, third, fourth, fifth, etc. books.
Well, I think Stephanie Meyer, the Twilight, who wrote the Twilight saga,
Yes.
I think she's a good example, because unfortunately, once that whole thing died with the movies and everything, and it was huge, I'm not going to deny that for a second, it was huge, but nobody's heard from her since.
No. She wrote The Chemist after everything started to fizzle out with Twilight, and it flopped and nobody ever heard from her again. She has since gone back trying to expand on to the Twilight saga by writing, one that was in, I think, Edward's point of view or roles reversed, something, but it still never picked up to the same as what the original saga was.
We're so used to that flash in the pan success, but in all honesty, you're better off starting at the bottom, working your way up slowly. That way you won't get overwhelmed with things, and it's more likely to continue, and in the long run, you're better off.
If you are struggling, my answer is have a trusted friend, family member, somebody that you know and hold dearly to you and know that you could pretty much hand them your life and they would never do you wrong. Read over your work. Review your work, preview it, let them read it and give you some feedback. As for critiques, Ask them to give you their honest opinion. Would this be something that they would read? Would it be something they picked up at a bookstore? What did they find that they didn't like? Was there any plot holes? Did the story drag at any point? Is it okay for it to drag in that area? Should it be sped up? What are their feedback, and what could you do to kind of make your writing a little bit better?
And if they're a close enough friend or family member, share with them your concerns, your fears.
Yes, open up to them. Be transparent.
Did this work? Did I go deep enough in the world building, or do I need to go further? Really open up to them and get their feedback. And I suggest trying to find two. You're going to get two different answers from two different people, and that's great. That's fine. You want that. The stuff that I look for when I do this is when both people converge. When both answers come the same, then I'm like, okay, I've got two people telling me the same thing. It's probably something I need to look at. The drawback to this is going to be sometimes you get personal opinions, and you have to kind of, okay, thank you, I'll take that in consideration.
But if it definitely goes against your grain, then I would
just kind of put that aside. But quite often, if you get somebody that you trust and that knows what they're doing, they're going to, and especially if it's a reader, they're going to give you their honest feedback, and you can take it from there. After that, take the plunge.
In one of our previous videos, that was going over pen names. I know I mentioned, a mother quite often has multiple hats, and when you're a writer, you're putting on that hat. The same thing can be said for when you're editing or when you're receiving critiques, is you have to put on that hat and figure out if that is going to be your author opinion or your not author opinion. I do the same thing with Alice when she's writing the Texas Vampire Ranger series currently. Because she takes lead on that, I do give feedback every once in a while and kind of help with a few scenes, but this is her series. And so when she comes to me with something, she reads it and she's like, I need your opinion as both a writer and a reader. And so I will sit there and I'll listen to what she reads me, I'll listen to her idea, and I'll sit and analyze it, and then I'll give her, okay, here's my reader perspective, and here's my writer perspective. Writer, most of the time, is just a few little tweaks on how I would word things to flow a little bit better. Reader perspective, I give more of a how much I enjoyed it or didn't enjoy it. And that's what you're looking for when you ask your friend or family member to review your work.
Another important thing to remember is once you take that plunge and hit publish, a lot of people think that that's it, that there's no going back whatsoever, and that is simply not true.
It is a little bit more difficult when you're with a publisher and somebody else has the rights to your book and controls making any changes. However, if you go down the indie publishing route or self-publishing, this is a lot easier to handle and deal with on your own.
It is. Many authors yank their books to put new covers on them, to fix mistakes. I know when we went through the Vampires Among Us trilogy and put new covers on, I specifically went through those books, correcting any mistakes that I found, anything like that, because that's a great time to do it. If you're going to yank the book from one thing, do it all while you've got it yanked.
Another one is a good example with our Dragons of Dragnos series. We were originally printing with one company. We have since switched, but in the process of switching, the books were reformatted in order to be converted over to the new printer. And while we were reformatting, we went ahead and reread through them, made a list of anything that we thought needed to change, and made those minor changes.
So it's not the end of the world. If you buy printed copies like this, and yes, it's going to cost you a little bit of money, but it's still, it's a doable situation. So don't think that you hit that publish button and the world's going to come to a stop, because that's not the case. It's going to be okay, but you'll be glad you did.
And always remember that there are people out there that love taking in battered books. I know a lot of authors who get damaged copies from, their box fell into a puddle of water when it got delivered, or, a crane pierced half the box and so some of the books are scratched or dented. You can always put those physical copies of books up for sale at a discounted price,
yes,
where you're still getting your money back for what you paid for it to be printed, but your customer is also getting a piece of your work. This helps if you have customers who are a little tight on budget. They still want to support you, read your work, but you're also not killing their budget.
Okay, I think that wraps up today's lesson.
It does, and so thank you for joining us today, and as always, don't stop learning and never stop dreaming.